Hi, this is Trina Debery from One Tired Teacher, and welcome to episode 13, The Value of Having a Growth Mindset. Today's guest, Larissa Bennett, is a school counselor who recently won the School Counselor of the Year from Florida, and she and her peers from all across the nation were recognized in Washington, D.C. Larissa is a brilliant school counselor who values the job that she does, and she tries to help children and teachers help children who are struggling with social and emotional issues. Larissa has brought some powerful practices to her school, her district, and her state. You aren't going to want to miss a minute, so I hope you stick around.
Welcome to One Tired Teacher. And even though she may need a nap, this teacher is ready to wake up and speak her truth about the trials and treasures of teaching. Here she is, wide awake. Wait, she's not asleep right now, is she? She is awake, right? Okay. From Trina Debery Teaching and Learning, your host, Trina Debery.
Hey, what's up? Before we begin episode 13, The Value of Having a Growth Mindset, I would love to give a shout out to a follower of One Tired Teacher who took the time to leave some much appreciated feedback from episode 9, The Power of Coworkers. Here's what she said. Being involved in a leadership program through my local Chamber of Commerce for 17 years, the topic of teamwork has always fascinated me due to changing teams each year and working with different personalities, perspectives, and dynamics. I especially got a lot out of episode 9 and need to go back and listen to episodes 7 and 8 now. But the lesson of valuing each person's strengths and letting them know how much you value them is so vital. We are together as a team for only a few months as we plan our seminar for the leadership class, and developing that trust early is key. Instead of meeting in a cold office or a restaurant, we put together a dinner in one of the planning committee members' homes so we can be relaxed over a home-cooked meal and wine to develop that initial rapport. Thank you for reminding me of the value of each person's contributions and strengths. Thank you, Susan Robertson, for taking the time to leave your feedback. I'm thrilled that you found value in the show. I would love to hear from you as well. Leave a rating, review, or comment, and I might just share it on the show. So today, in today's show, we're bringing an outstanding school counselor, Larissa Bennett, to share all about the importance of the job of school counselors all across the nation and creating a united front with teachers in our schools. Larissa also shares some powerful insight into the significance of teaching children, all about having a growth mindset. So let's get started. So Larissa, I'm so excited to have you, and you are just an unbelievable wealth of information, and I cannot wait for the listeners to hear all the important things that you have to say. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. I'm just so glad you said yes. All right. So tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've been doing and like your experience.
Wow. So I feel like, I've been in education for 17 years now. 13 of those have been as a school counselor. And to be perfectly honest, this is probably the first year of all of those years that I felt like I'm actually in a groove. Like I actually have stuff that I've got going on. So it's taken that long to get to this point.
Wow.
But I'm excited. I'm excited for work as a school counselor and what we do in the schools. And I think that we're on the cusp of something really exciting, especially in Manatee County. But as a nation, I think we're on the cusp of something really exciting.
I think that that's unbelievable to hear. And I know that you've been a huge part of pushing for that and like getting it out there that what you all do, like what school counselors do and how vital and how important you are for our children and for our teachers. And you were recently recognized for that, and congratulations.
Thank you.
I want you to tell us a little bit about like what that was and your experience in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, with the big wigs. So as the Florida school counselor, they send every state who gets to go to the national awards recognition, basically, which is a great, exciting black tie event. But really, it was the most exciting thing to just spend 2 days with people who are of like mind of me. And we got to hear latest research and sit in panel discussions and listen to hear what, the top people have to say about the impacts of school counselors and the work that we do, and to hear what is new and exciting coming out, and to hear the work that other people are doing all across the country, and to know that we've got a little part of that here in Manatee County is really cool.
Yes, that's so cool. And I know when we were off the air, we were talking about, I was saying that you found your people. And I do, I really think that's true. And to sit there amongst people that are like-minded and are excited about and passionate about the things that you are passionate about, that probably felt very rewarding.
It was rewarding. But then I also felt like I have so much more work to do. So you know how you go to conferences and you come back all, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And it kind of fizzles out a little bit. But I just felt like here I am with these fabulous people and feeling a little bit like, okay, validated, I guess is the right word, that we're doing the right things, but then also inspired to, all right, there's so much more that we need to do. So it was a good feeling to come back with.
Well, you are like, your passion and drive for helping kids and for doing some like really incredible things in schools has been obvious to me for a long time. And I know that when people meet you, like it comes out, but sometimes you're reserved and you hold it back. And then it's like, you turn around and you're like, wow, you really are amazing. I wish that I had longer to soak up all the things that you have to share.
You can come back.
Yeah, I don't know about that. But that is definitely a regret. That was a regret then, and it still is a part that I think back and I'm like, oh, the things I could have learned from you.
Vice versa.
Oh, well, no, but thank you. All right, so tell me, like you're saying that it's taken you that long to like find your groove. Like, what do you mean by that?
So there's so many limits, or I wouldn't even say limits, I guess, with school counselors. There's just this unawareness, I guess, of what we actually should be and what we could be. So, my first lesson that I started my journey on several years ago in our district was, we're not guidance counselors. So we get called that all the time. I call it the G word now because it's kind of a bad word. Like, guidance counselors were in the 60s. And we're in like almost 2020 here. Mm-hmm. So we've shifted to the school counselor role, which is more mental health based. So finally, we're getting somewhere with that. But even more importantly is the work that comes from behind that. So I'm in my groove this year because the tasks, the other duties as assigned that we get, kind of really been taken off my plate. And I've been given this kind of really awesome power to be able to just work, just do what I am meant to do.
Absolutely.
And so it's taken a fight. I say all the time, I fight to get to this place. I fight hard to get to this place, and I'm here. I don't know how long it'll last. I hope it'll last a long time. But
yeah, I think it definitely will. And I think when you can't help but when you've been fighting against it and you kind of get acknowledged because of it, you're almost rewarded or in that way, like it kind of, maybe some people that push against it back off a little bit, and we allow you to do exactly what you need to do. And that is to bring more clarity and more understanding and to help children, and specifically to help children. And so you're gifted, you're very gifted in that area. And I'm really so happy to hear that you're getting to do that more, that you're getting to do what you're supposed to do, what you're meant to do.
Right. And I guess my big fight is always for the students. Of course, number one is for them. But then behind the scenes, I am constantly working to fight for the rest of the counselors out there who don't have that voice or don't know that they should have that voice, because we all have to work together. So
you're right. And that's really important. You're an important person to have that voice. I'm really glad to hear that. Tell the listeners, for those people that don't know the difference between a school counselor and a guidance counselor.
So easy enough. So guidance counselors back in the day, 60s, and kind of what we all grew up with. I mean, I feel like I had guidance counselors through my schooling. But guidance counselors were just teachers that they ripped from the classroom and said, all right, your job is to guide students and get them into this college path. So in the 50s and 60s, when they decided that, college was an option for a lot of kids, they needed somebody to help them get there and go through that. So that's where guidance counselors were. And then in the 70s, especially along with that, the students with disabilities, and we started recognizing that we shouldn't be institutionalizing all of these students, that's when school counselors kind of really came into being, was we need counselors at all levels to help students navigate the school system. So school counselors' job is academic and social emotional, and then college and career. Those are our three main tenets that we have to focus on. So that encompasses so much more than what we think of guidance counselors. Unfortunately, our high school counselors, middle school counselors even, are still stuck in that guidance counselor role, scheduling, doing all of those mundane tasks.
It does seem like that. Testing coordinators, things
absolutely.
like
that. Yep, those are still out there. So yeah, that stigma is still there, that's what a guidance counselor is they just do all those other jobs. Whatever can't get done by other people, we get it.
Yeah, that's a waste of talent, especially for you. Like it's a waste of talent for all school counselors, but I mean, I know you specifically, and that's you are designed for more than that, more than just those extra tasks. Why do you think like now is the time that you're starting to see some change? Like, why do you think it's particular at this point in time?
Well, I think there's a compounding of a lot of different things. So obviously in Florida, we're more impacted by the Parkland incident. So you're going to hear, as a nation, I'm thinking it's going to become more of a buzz term, that you're going to hear that social emotional learning, the SEL. In education, we've all kind of had that in the background. As counselors, that's what we're embedded on. It's one of our three main tenets is social emotional. So it's not new to us. It's kind of like in our wheelhouse. It's what we're trained to do. But nationally and definitely more locally, you're going to hear it a lot more, that social emotional learning component being embedded throughout all levels and in classrooms. Teachers are going to have training in it. So I think now it kind of is maybe coming more to the surface because of the needs. Unfortunately, it takes these major crises to occur for the rest of our higher ups, I guess, to realize that this is what needs to be happening in the first place. And quite honestly, it starts way down here in pre-K and kindergarten.
Yes. And that's been the thing that has surprised me, like in the past 20 years of my, education career, is seeing how many younger children were just struggling with being at school, just struggling emotionally. Do you think that number has increased?
I think so. I think exponentially it has. I mean, at first we had to kind of take a step back and say, is it just because we're more aware of the signs, the symptoms, or is it because there's more? Kind of that, go back to that autism question. Is it because we're more aware, or is it because the numbers are increasing? And I think it has to go back to the numbers are increasing, and we're seeing it younger and younger, even in our kindergarten students. We have these mental health needs.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think? I mean, what do you?
Wow, that's a powerful question that I wish I had the answer to. I think that's a lot of different factors. I think there is definitely something in our environment that is triggering however our brain makeups are being created in the wombs. I think that's part of it. There's some natural effects that are happening, whether that's food or our air quality. I don't know the science on that, but my gut says there's a piece of that. But then I also think it's societal pressures are coming in. I'm a Pinterest person. I enjoy going on Pinterest for ideas. I think I've kind of gotten this term of Pinterest parenting is happening a lot too, where parents are seeing this perfect piece of life, and Pinterest puts out the best of it. And so Pinterest parenting, I think, is part of it. We have perfect lives, perfect parties, perfect, outfits for everything. Not sure that the parenting part of it too is a huge part of it. And then of course, phenomena, I talked to my staff this year about lawnmower parenting. Somebody somewhere this year coined that term, and it stuck hard with me.
I know. What does that mean?
So we've got those helicopter parents that has been the term for a while. Yes. They're always kind of like hovering right there, ready to save the day just in case. But lawnmower parenting, we're seeing more and more with parents who are they're just clearing the path before the kid even gets there.
Oh,
So we have kids who
wow.
never come across challenges or problems because the path has been already cleared for them, and parents are coming from that good meaning. They're not, wanting to harm their children, but without that thought of, my gosh, struggle is part of life.
Yes, you're right.
It's how our brains develop.
Absolutely.
So I think that's part of what's happening is students are lacking that growth inside their brains.
All right. So that takes me to my next question, and that's about growth mindset, because I know that that's been a big push for you, and that's a perfect setup for that. I mean, that makes sense. That's what the kids need. So talk to us a little bit about that, about growth mindset, what it is for those people that don't know, and how we can be more proactive in our response to lawnmower parents. That's right. You're right, though. That's absolutely what's happening.
Yeah, so growth mindset is, so Carol Dweck was the original psychologist and researcher behind growth mindset. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I'm not really quite sure yet. It's become the thing. We get out there and the buzzwords. Maybe you don't tie it to growth mindset, but that power of yet is there. And, mistakes are okay. And, I've got to have that positive mindset, that growth mindset piece of it. So that's great. That's where a lot of schools and a lot of classrooms pick up on. And so we, push this language out to our kids. And that's just the smallest surface part of it. So in my research, and really I started this for my own kid, I had to figure out how is his brain working and how am I going to best meet his needs? And in all of that research, I realized, wow, all kids need this. Adults need this work.
Absolutely.
So it really goes down to that brain development. And that's where my push has been with growth mindset. I love the buzzwords. I love that terminology and that thinking. But I want kids to understand how their brains work. We walk around with these things in our heads. They're the CPUs of our bodies. But even as adults, we have no idea how they function and how we can actually manipulate them to do what they should be doing the right way instead of letting them manipulate us. I want kids to understand that.
Yes. I mean, what a huge difference it makes in their lives. And,
oh, yeah.
I mean, and the same thing for me with my son. We've had the conversations that we've had probably in the last 6 months have been like the way that he thinks about himself and the way that he thinks that he learns, and like almost the lies that he's believed about himself, he's allowed to limit him. And we've been having like conversations about looking past that and thinking about it in a different way. And it's been so eye-opening to me. It's been so eye-opening for me to see, first of all, he's gotten so much better at like naming what he thinks and how he feels and being able to talk about it. And for a 14-year-old boy, I think that, yes, I think it's pretty huge. I'm actually like, I'm in awe. It's like a light bulb went off somewhere, and he has grown up and right in front of me. I mean, he's gotten tall, but he's really tall. He's taller than I am. But I'm like, what happened? Like, he's very reflective, and I don't know, just able to talk about it and see it in a different way. And I think, that makes such a huge difference. And I think about so many kids that I've seen through the years, and I'm like, if they had those tools, like the path,
right.
it would have looked different.
Right.
Better.
So it really ties greatly with anxiety. And I know that's one of the areas that you focused on. And so many kids are showing those signs and symptoms of anxiety and probably diagnosably accurate of signs of anxiety. But even if it's not, we all experience anxiety in different ways. But if you can just understand what's happening in your brain when that happens, when you get those feelings, to be able to know what is happening and that you have control over it. It's just, I've watched these young kids, and I really struggled this year in rolling this out as a school. How low can I go? Like, at what age can I start this with? And I kind of backed off kindergarten, more for my own concern. I'm not really quite sure if they're ready for this yet. But I think I was wrong on that. I think we should be starting as early as we can in teaching them what's going on. I think Inside Out, I have to write a letter. It's on my to-do list. I have to write a letter to Disney, to Pixar, to whomever, to say, this, I think, is by far the best movie ever. And it should be mandatory watching for every child entering school, because the kids who've seen it make such a deep connection when I start talking about how your brain is and what's on the inside of your brain. Yes. And they can link to that. Oh yeah, I saw that. Those characters. That's it. Everybody's got that.
Yes.
And they can make that easy connection to it. So yeah, I need to get even lower in my work with these kids.
Yeah. And I think that's a good example. And I mean, I think that you should write Pixar. You never know what would happen.
It's on my to-do list.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, just as whoever came up with that really got it. I mean, that's growth mindset right there. How our brains work and how they function. And, not to promote Disney or anything, but, you can't have happiness without the sadness. So for kids to make those connections and to realize that, you know what, you're actually in control of that. Instead of your brain flipping out, you can control what happens next. You can control when your brain starts to make those, we call it flipping out. And when you have control over that and understand that I call it the boss of your brain. When you're the boss of your brain, you can do anything, you can figure this out, because you're in charge. Yes. Nobody else is.
And I think that what you said earlier about it being for adults too, I think that's so true for adults. I mean, how many self-negative doubts do we have about ourselves that really think about it, we're the boss of our brain. I mean, I'm going to tell myself that when I start doubting myself, because it really does make such a huge difference.
Yeah. We all are. We all, sometimes, we want our brains to be the boss. And as I, tell the kids, when, a woolly mammoth is coming in the room, we want our brains to take over, take away some of that scary part of it. But yeah, that fight or flight, that's when we want our brains to be in that automatic response. But the rest of the time, learning, emotions, friendship skill, all of that, we can totally control that.
Yes.
We can't control what happens to us, but we can control how our brain thinks and responds to it.
Yes.
And so that's pretty crucial. And I really hadn't realized that until, a couple of years ago when I started this.
You started that, yeah. That's fascinating because I think that's probably made a huge difference. I'm excited to hear about it going to younger kids too, because I really think that the younger that they are and the more that they become aware and they grow up believing and understanding how they think and seeing challenges and failures not as the worst and the end of the world, as something that helps them just move forward, learn to stand back up and what do I do next? How do I respond to this? I think is a huge aspect that I know that's one of the things that I talked to when I told you, and I talked to Melanie, which is, I'll link to that in the show notes. But we talked about building student rapport, but we talked about some of the things that she was doing in her classroom. And one of them was they were talking about celebrating and like better understanding their failures and their challenges and how we're going to look at this and how we're going to learn from this. And I'm like, this is so exciting that kids are experiencing that, because I mean, there's so often, and I do feel like sometimes in our system, we set kids up to see that as a failure. Like if they're not getting a certain grade, I just watched I don't know if it was a TED Talk or where, but it was that person that you were talking about. What's her last name? Dweck, Carol
Dweck.
And she was talking about that this one school did a not yet grade. Instead of like failing, it was a not yet. And I'm like, what a huge difference that would make.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, to all kids. But I mean, I think about like little kids when we first start doing grades and all of a sudden they're like in this world of grades and they're like, what do you mean I have an F? And it's like, no, how about not yet? You don't have it yet.
Yeah, F is total failure. So how can you internalize that anything but?
No,
that I failed. I'm a failure.
Yes. Yeah. And I think sometimes that the way that we have things set up, it kind of lends to that feeling of failure as a bad thing, as not seeing it as this is what moves me forward. they see it as, this is it, I'm done, it's over, I don't want to do it anymore, it's too hard, and I don't want anything to do with it, which I definitely feel like my child feels like that sometimes. But I think he's starting to understand that that doesn't have to mean that I don't, that this is like my path may not be exactly the way I thought it was going to be, but this is what I can make of my path. And I think that, I don't know, I think that's made a huge difference somehow.
Absolutely. It's one of the great counseling theorists that I have always subscribed to, and growth mindset just kind of works right into that, is just that this simple analogy of, it's not the rain that makes the day miserable. It's how you've decided to think about it and what you've decided to do from there. Mm-hmm. So if you're on a path and it's not the way that you thought, it was not going to be the sunny day that you had expected, well, so how are we going to change it? What can you do to make sure that the day turns out to be just okay? It doesn't have to be what you thought it was going to be. It might even be better. You might have a better day. So it just works on all levels. And so the academic side, of course, is, huge. We all have to get to that level. But, think of that then on the social side, when we have these, not that mass shooters are the only problems we have, and we have so many others, kids that grow up into adults who don't have the social skills to deal with other people. So it works in the exact same way. What happens when you've been ostracized or you've been minimalized and marginalized? That's it then, right? There's nobody out there. There's nobody who cares about me.
Yes.
Well, that's not true.
No.
So how can we reframe that? How can we think about that and give them the power back instead of waiting for somebody else to bring that power to them?
So what are some things that teachers can be doing? Because you said it's going to be in classrooms, and I definitely think it needs to be. There's not enough school counselors, even at the school where we were together. There's not enough people to deal with all the things that come up.
Right.
And a teacher has a contact with that student for a large part of the day, at least in elementary school, and significant amounts of time in middle school and high school. But what are some things that teachers can do?
So I know it is so cliche and so out there, but the relationships and what Melanie talked about with rapport, that's it, right? Mm-hmm. That's the crux of all of it, is making sure that those relationships are solid, and then taking that relationship and building on it. And that can be really hard for some of these kids. And I know as a classroom teacher, even as a counselor, not all kids are easy, and they're not all easy to want to work with.
You're right.
So building some more tools in the toolbox has been key for me, at least, in recognizing that, okay, this kid is maybe not one of my easiest targets and the most likable of kids, but that's just the reality of it. And so what can I do to meet them? What can we find in common that I can build on and grow from there? And then eventually I realized, oh yeah, you know what, this kid has some really awesome qualities that I can absolutely work with. So the relationships is key, but then also having that partnership. Teachers are overwhelmed with the work that they have to do. Curriculum continues to be pushed and pushed and pushed.
Yes.
And, limited time for learning teaching strategies. Everybody's kind of out there on their own trying to figure it out. But then also having that recognition that there are people at your school who are available, or at least we try to be available as much as possible to have that relationship with. So if you are stuck with a kid, then ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness. We've got to come together for this kid. And
absolutely. And I think that Leslie said that last week, and I'll link to that show as well. She said that same thing about having partnerships with the school psychologists and with the school counselors. And I think that's so important. And I'm not sure where along the line teachers felt like they couldn't do that. I don't know what happened to create that kind of relationship, but I know it's so important not to continue that, because like when you do reach out, I know for personal experience, when I reached out to you, you gave me so much knowledge, so much information that I didn't have on my own, that I didn't know. And I think it's okay. But then I guess it's also, I'm not afraid to say I don't know something. And right. I think sometimes we kind of encounter teachers don't have to know it all. They can't know it all.
Yep.
We need to be able to go to other people, and we need to be able to brainstorm in a safe environment where we can think out loud, like, what are we going to do next? And I personally don't know how we would do it without people like you.
Right. Well, and I find that it's become easier when I can go into classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, it was always like this, waiting for this invite, like, will you let me come in? And so working with teachers who are willing to give up a little bit of time, and then growing from there. So, this year, out of not going into fifth grade classrooms, but K through 4, oh gosh, I don't even know how many teachers that is, but only 2 teachers in that entire K through 4 realm I'm not going into classrooms with. Wow. And I feel like some of them are, hopefully a lot of them are appreciating what we're doing, but it really has made a huge difference, I think, on the impact that we're making on the classrooms where the teacher is involved with the lesson that I'm going in there to do, and they're interacting. So to me, not just saying, okay, well, there's other people who can come in and support me or give me some ideas, but really partnering.
Yes.
So
like a co-teaching kind of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I welcome that. I want that. And I always thank those teachers who are involved in those lessons and who interject and link it to what's going on in the classroom. So I think it's a wraparound. I guess is the right. It's wraparound service. Like, we have to all be on a united front, and we're all in this together. So how can we work together? So I think that's a part of that partnership, is not just somebody on my campus I can go talk to, but who can come in.
Yes.
And the kids need to see that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's important for them to have those relationships. So the more they see us in the rooms, I think the further the teachers can go with the work they're doing.
And what are your feelings about increasing some professional development around these topics?
Oh, I think it's huge. Where in the time is it going to happen when academics and curriculum are such a big push? We've tried at least making sure that those staff meetings, we get 10 minutes to push out the next topic and kind of get the why behind that topic for the month. But teachers definitely, we need some serious PD. Even those of us that are still in the mental health field, we continually get PD in our areas because it changes so frequently. So I think the state, at least Florida, is going to be pushing for that social emotional learning. So SEL.
I'm so glad because we don't think about, like, yes, obviously the academic part is extremely important, but you can't learn if you're in a state of, you've been through trauma, or your brain, your anxiety is so. I recently had a personal experience with that, and remembering what it must feel like for kids. I've been taking this yoga teacher training, and my daughter was in a car accident, and I had a test on that weekend, and she was in an accident on Wednesday, and I could not. My anxiety was so high. I was so distraught and wanted to, she was fine. She was totally fine. But to me, it was, it's a miracle she got out of the car. The car was crushed.
Wow.
And it was very hard to concentrate. And I'm like, this is what it feels like when you're dealing with anxiety. You can't concentrate. Your brain is so focused on the first thing that's the most important thing to you, or whatever's happening to you at the time. You're unable. Nothing was sinking in. I'm studying for this anatomy test, this anatomy yoga test, and I'm like, I cannot remember the bones in the leg. I cannot remember anything. It was so. I ended up passing, thank goodness, but I don't know how. Because it was really, and I'm thinking, this is how kids feel. And it might not be a car accident, but it could be their parents are getting divorced, or they got to a fight, or they didn't have dinner that night, or whatever the situation is. And if those things, if those basic needs and their emotional needs are not being met, they can't learn. It's almost impossible.
Right.
So I think it's very important.
Yeah. It really is. And I wish I had my magic wand, as I always say in my office with my students. If I had my magic wand and I could fix this, that's exactly where I would fix, is that understanding of the academics are powerful and important. But if they're not ready for that, it doesn't matter how great you are, they're not going to absorb it, retain it, or be able to utilize it. No. So we have to meet them where they are. And if more and more students are presenting with the inability to absorb our, teaching, then we've got to kind of shift that focus. So hopefully more PD is going to be coming. And then hopefully too, teachers are going to be more receptive to it as well, to understand that this is part of their role.
And it has to be. I mean, it has to be as part of the person, as part of one of the people that is taking care of the child. You have to learn some of the things you don't know. It's just that important. And again, I see so many teachers that get frustrated with kids, and even myself. Like, I think back on a student that I had a long, long time ago, and I think that poor kid, like he probably had like really bad anxiety, and I didn't look at it like that. I didn't see it that way. I mean, I've tried to like forgive myself, because this literally was like 6 years ago, but move past it. Like, I can't beat myself up about it forever. But I do feel like, I think back and I'm like, there were signs that I didn't know that those were signs of anxiety. And I think that poor kid, like I let him down, and he deserved better than that. And I feel like, and I think about other teachers and how they get frustrated with kids. And I'm like, sometimes if they don't get to the why they're behaving that way, then you're just going to continue to be frustrated, and it's not going to do you or the child any good. So I think there needs to be, like, maybe instead of getting frustrated, we empower ourselves with some more information.
Yeah, absolutely. That function of behavior. There was a shirt out there somebody wanted to purchase. I think I need to buy it or make it or whatever needs to happen. But it is, the function of the behavior that is the key. Like, what is the why? Mm-hmm. If we can't figure that out, and for some kids, we won't know.
No,
that's just the bottom line of it too. For some kids, some of it is so deep ingrained in such traumatic incidences in the development of the brain there that, we might not know the why, but we can certainly try and make the path a little bit, not easier, but understand, so that we can guide the path for that child. So the why is huge.
Yeah, the why is huge. Well, you've given us lots to think about, as usual. Do you have anything else that you would like to share?
I'm just right now in a good state of learning and growing, which I think is, the best thing you can be. Yes. And the more I can learn about my own brain and how it works, and if I can, have little neuroscientists in training at school so that they can understand their brains and, those metacognitive thinkers, then I think we're all going to be better off.
I think so too. I think you're doing some really outstanding work, and I am just unbelievably in awe.
Oh, thank you.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for sticking around. I hope you will rate the show and review it and subscribe. I would love to hear your thoughts on today's show. This concludes our mini-series on mental health. Next week, we will begin an exciting adventure into high engagement activities and learning. I have some outstanding guests coming. I hope you'll tune in. You're not going to want to miss it. Subscribe so you don't miss a thing. This one tired teacher is ready for a long winter's nap. Until next time, sleep tight.